Welcome to another exciting episode, an educational episode, informative episode of You Don't.
I want to talk more about generational programming, and that's what it's like to be, to be born into an Illuminati cult.
Okay. The topic and subject matter of tonight's show is of the utmost seriousness, and this will be probably one of will definitely be the most important, You Don't Know episode to date. We've got Tara with us, empath, healer, survivor. We're going to learn what that means tonight to be a survivor. There's going to be a lot of topics that Tara is going to bring up, starting with multi-generational abuse, what is in the past, rightly or wrongly, been called by some people satanic ritual abuse. And it's just, it's a very big problem. And so, Tara, please just start wherever you feel comfortable with. I'm all ears.
Well, I want to, first of all, elaborate a little bit on what you just said. Thank you, Ayin, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I think the satanic ritual abuse component of this subject matter comes up a lot. It's sensational, and it is definitely a component of the programming. However, in the generational programming cult that I'm speaking of, that what I experienced, the programming isn't all just satanic ritual, and it's not all just about some sort of religious ideation, although they are illuminists, and they run a cult that is very organized and hierarchical, and it extends throughout every single county, every single city, and every single state in the United States. They organize within each area, based on locality and geography. And they have people who are out roles for them in society. They're embedded in the military-industrial complex very frequently because of the Illuminists' fixation on access to military computer codes. And so they also insert people into the media. We see this a lot. We have a problem right now with the media that is tied to the Zionist banking industry and the Rothschilds, whoever it is that owns the media. I know it's like 4 companies or 6 different families or companies that own all of the media. So forgive me, I can't recall the details right now and who all that was, but it's a monopoly. And there are people, actually journalists, who are in the media who are dissociative. They have deliberately created dissociate identity disorder, which is what I am diagnosed with officially, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder, which goes hand in hand with DID, because DID is, induced from trauma. As we know, PTSD is also a result of trauma. So, anyway, people will be targeted for implantation into our society in ways that they can influence our society. Now, journalism is a great one because then they're in the news and they're all operating together and being triggered together. And if you'll notice, a lot of times when staged events happen and big important news is going on, the journalists talking about it will oftentimes be saying the same script and wearing the same colors. The color coding is coming through, and they put their dissociates into the medical communities, into the hospitals, into the funeral homes, into the morgues, wherever they need to get covert business done. And by covert business, I mean mafia-style operations. And we're talking the Nani, and that's just what I'm going to call them for sake of, I think that's the way everyone knows to describe them as, to refer to them as. They are drug runners, and they are gun runners. They are child traffickers. they are pornographers. They are bankers. And they're behavioral scientists and psychologists. And they're identified, they're known before they're born because it's generational programming. So you're basically born into a situation where your parents had some sort of bloodline that had been programmed, that had the capability of being programmable. So when you get to a certain age, you get approached. And if you are like me, you one day have a near-death experience and your system starts to fall apart and you begin a deprogramming process. But if you're like the majority of people who are born into these systems or used in these systems as mind-controlled and mind-programmed and handled people, they treat us like slaves, but we are not slaves. We are meant to be free. We are humans. We have feelings. And it's not right that we live in America, the most richest, supposedly freest country on the planet, that has a ruler to smack the hands of every other country on the planet when it comes to their slaving, when it comes to their human trafficking. But what do we have here? Nothing. We have nothing to go to for help with this. If you are like me and you wake up or you realize you have no real choice but to accept what they're offering you, because the consequence is worse. Because if you have something they want, the way these guys operate, Ayin, you don't have to have been born into the genetic line to receive programming before birth. If you have something they want, whether it's a skill, knowledge, connections, a position in particular situation, or your own children, they will find a way to blackmail you, hard-nose you, straight up. They'll just buy it off of you. It just depends on how, what it takes to get the job done. But when they see something they want, they take it. And that's what's happening. They took my sovereignty, my mental and psychological, emotional sovereignty, my spiritual sovereignty too, for my life, my whole lifetime. And I believe that even though my father, my original father, who we're calling Barry for the purposes of not revealing his true name and me not having to call him my father because I don't want to give him dominion over me anymore. I'm a married woman and he does not have dominion or power over me. So, with all due respect, because he is still the man that I came from, his genetics, and he did teach me a lot about life, and he gave me a lot of good insight into things too. However, I believe, from what I've seen and from what I understand, he probably didn't really have much of a chance to begin with. He got greedy. I believe he must have gone after power, is kind of what I figure happened, and he decided to play the game. Maybe he didn't want to be a lab rat or a slave and he thought he could play the game. Maybe he thought he could do something better or for himself or his own family. I don't know. I don't know because I haven't talked to him for 14 years. So it's hard on me because having been a victim of this type of programming, I know what it's like to actually be programmed. And you really don't know what you're doing. You really don't know or understand what you're doing. And I understand that he is in a different situation because he consented to be programmed. That means he consented to play this way, to use techniques, to use electronics and technology and cruel techniques like electroshocking me, to get on the inside game, to get a step up. Maybe a step up in whatever way, I don't know, because honestly we've obviously never had a discussion about it. But I know I was used in very inappropriate and humiliating ways, and that this is happening to other people. And this is happening, I believe, that this programming cult is not just involved. It's not just about advancing the people, at the top and the elite. And, it is about that. It's about free labor. It's about slave labor. It's about, you give someone DID through trauma, through electroshock, and now you can call out that altar to do something for you, and they don't even know they did it. You have an employee that is working for free. You have a slave. And so free labor is a big part of it. They're about making money. They're greedy. So they have this free labor that is making these deals with people behind the scenes in the mafia, in the Colombian drug running cartel is a big one. They have very close ties to them. And most of the places, like a lot of the memories, I wouldn't say most places, but a lot of the places that I went to, I think, more regularly and that I remember in childhood, at least, it was houses. I remember a lot of stuff happening at houses. And then I also have memories of being in facilities, too. But a lot of this stuff was done actually in houses. And it's just total control. And I think that some of these people, it's not just about sexual control, although a lot of the women who are born into these cults, they get beta programming, which basically they can be controlled sexually quite easily with just a few simple known procedures. And that's a big benefit that a lot of, women are programmed with, because especially as children, and they're turned into child prostitutes, and they are taught to give sexual favors to the older members of the group. And that programming that they receive as a child, it lasts them their whole life. So even eventually they get traded around and marriages arranged and things like that in order to promote the cult to certain people, and they'll either ask to put them together, they'll volunteer to get together to breed a child to elevate the children through the bloodlines. And so a lot of these children are a lot of these women who are in these bloodline cults, these breeding cults, they are having like 5, 6, 7 children. They're having a lot of children, or they're having children with several different men. And sometimes these men are having children with several different women, and they're all kind of sharing children. And I've seen that going on, passing around of children. Even in my life and my reality, I wasn't raised by my natural original father. The stepfather came into the situation and did the actual raising for the most part after 5 years old. I was very controlled how much I saw Barry. And in fact, from the age of 14 until I was pregnant with my daughter, we didn't see each other at all. And then again, from, like I said, the past space of so many years, 14 years. So our relationship in and of itself is heavily controlled. And the men that worked with him in the military industrial complex and all of the engineers that worked around this, these were top secret aerospace, rocket scientists and military defense contractors. These were people who ultimately did have access to codes, knowing very important programming and software languages. Now, a major issue with this is that the cult itself has its own programs and their own kind of system of hacking the networks and everything of the military and security systems. The military on their bases, they change their codes every so often, but I think it's randomly. And so people who are programmed like me, who have different personalities that were put in there, and one of mine was wrote memorization. I could memorize and I could mimic. And so a part of me was like a plant. And a lot of the I won't say a lot, but some of the women in that what we commonly call the secret space program, they're really plants, and they're getting virtual reality headset programming sessions with trainers is what's happening. And the programming is, the virtual reality is going to be different planets, a UFO. For a man, it's going to be an assassination. It's really the trainer with the little goggles they put on her face in the training room. And the training rooms, they can be packed up and shipped. They can be somewhere remote, temporarily set up in one night. They can be at someone's house. They can be in a basement of a parking garage or in an underground tunnel. A lot of them, I think in various places are. So basically, so imagine this, people with DID, people like me who I had programming that would allow, basically my personalities were compartmentalized to where I don't always know what the other ones were doing, and I could absorb information, and then I could be called, and given the hypnotized, message or whatever, the code, the password and the hand gesture to get into my system of alters, and that part of me that knows that through hypnosis can say exactly back word for word what I read or what I saw, and exchange information. Not only that, these people, when the codes get changed randomly, the people who are programmed by the Illuminati, they switch. They make their report. They're programmed to report to them that's been changed and what the codes are. So there's really no, security is a joke as far as true top secret defense security. That's something that is really scary and dangerous, and yet society is in such denial that these things even exist or could possibly be done, which is a laugh, since there's shows like Darren Brown on TV and shows where mentalists clearly show how easy it is to convert an atheist to a cathartic breakdown in 5 seconds, basically, or get a jeweler in New York City to accept paper money. I mean, pieces of paper instead of money because of a suggestion, because of an implanted messing with the subconscious mind. These are master manipulators. All of our reality. My zone that I live in, the zone I live in, this is stage. It's stagecraft. It's all a set. Every single zone they stage out. They crew it. And informers, they can have photographic recall, have a photographic memory created with brainstem scarring. And let me see, I have some notes I made to try to, so there's arranged marriages, and it did say that. Pornography and prostitution, they use that for blackmail also. And the interesting thing about that is today with technology where it's at, you don't have to actually have sex with the child for there to be a video file showing you having sex with the child. If somebody wants to create that at that level and come use it against you, they do that. So that sucks, because what happens is the higher up people, if you do grow an average Joe politician from home and he starts to climb the ladder, eventually, guess what happens? They want him. And they'll put him in positions, they'll destroy his family, they'll make it up. This is why we need local leadership, period, across the board. We need local leadership if we want to conquer the Illuminati. And I'm very serious about this. I mean it when I say I want to conquer the Illuminati. They abuse and use our energies and our abilities and hidden, just realities about ourselves that if we knew and understood about ourselves, we could come together and create our own networks of light and love and information that they don't perceive. It wouldn't have to be in the dark, but they wouldn't perceive it because they can't perceive the love and the light that happens from the higher frequencies. So, media personnels, and then, with the ritual stuff, especially when I was younger, and I know that they've done it even as recently as 2010 that I know, got called, a call together on a ritual night. And as children, you get assigned duties. You get assigned duties until you get old enough for them to know what it is you're going to be good at and what they're going to pick you for. You get the installations, you get the training, you get the programs for the stuff that they want to give you. So at a certain age, like 3 years old, I think it was, like a girl will go before the grand matron, the grandmother, and she'll decide if she's to be used on the jury council or she's to be used on, if she gets accepted or not. If she gets accepted, she gets certain types of training that, others wouldn't get that aren't on that council, for instance. Or if this little girl is especially good, especially wants to please people and she's very pretty, she might get, definitely the beta training, the sexual programming. A lot of women get the sexual programming. And they have the children we perform duties. So like in the cult, when I was little, I was a reader. So I said in like ancient languages and stuff, invocations and reading, because I was emotional and I was very good at acting and speaking loudly. And I'm actually an energy channel, which I understand now, and a medium, and I'm a vessel for God now. I'm being healed and I'll be perfected on the other side, not here, but I'm already redeemed. God knows what they did and put to my genetics and all of that. It's crazy that somebody can take control of you at that level so that it's coming from the inside, but they do. And it takes years and years to become aware of this stuff and learn to manage it so that you're not acting unconsciously, you're not fulfilling their desires for you. Just this past week, I unpackaged a script inside myself to create, a psychic sort of healing website, called a specific thing that was a triggering, it was a programmed code, Oracle of Gaia, and it was actually a program that came from a specific cult that had some interest in me. I'd been treated to it one time. It's connected to some Christian type programming, and I had to recognize that, and instead of acting out, even though it starts to, and I have to write it out or act it out a little bit and kind of get it outside of me so I can look at it consciously, and then I can look inside myself and, go to God and say, where's, I need to get clarity and know what your true plan for me. I just want to be myself, my true self, the true child, the divine child that I am, and, get past those things. And so it's possible to like puke it out of you basically and not have to act on it. And that's pretty much the hope and glory of being born into a generational programming cult for the Illuminati. It doesn't get much better than that, I'm afraid. For my entire life, I will have and suffer the effects of the abuse and the trauma. And so will the other women and children that I know and that I've seen, witnessed, affected by these things. And there's no real way out. Nobody wants to hear about it because society is in denial that it exists. They're in denial it exists. So if you're born into a family, just like if you're born into the mafia and your dad's Tony Soprano, and you're, of course, like you go and try to talk to the psychologist at school or whatever, they're gonna think something's off. You're delusional. You're born into the the military industrial complex, and you're born into a illuminated, family line. You can't tell anybody about that. You're used for sex. If you're born and you're used for sex, you can't go and tell people. I'm just starting to realize that I was born into a programming cult and I was used as a breeder, and I had the 6 kids I had from 2 different dudes that are having kids with 3 other girls that I'm trauma bonded to in my area. Wow, that's what's going on. I'm a mindful victim. People I think are my closest friends, I'm sleeping with the enemy. and shit. And you try to go to tell someone at the hospital, and the nurse asks you, is someone hurting you at home? And you say, well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, they're hurting me. They're drugging me, and they're using, suggestion and mentalism, and I'm predisposed to it because I was prepped for it. And so it has an exaggerated effect on me. And I'm being abused, and I can't stop it because no one believes me. They say, okay, yeah, we'll be right with you on that. And they call the police. And the police come and take you to a psych hospital. They drop you off. You get another mark on your psych as a Baker Act. Now, there is even less chance that anyone will ever take you seriously again. And they do this. They did it to me on purpose at the first time as a teenager to put that on my record, to establish the false reality. They create double lives for their victims. So that depending on what perspective you looked at my life, you would see a totally different angle. Totally different. And they do that on purpose to establish this pattern so that if the person does try to cry out and there is a doctor, a policeman, a detective, somebody who is not involved in the Illuminati cult, who is interested in breaking up the Illuminati cult, they don't want you to make it to that person. So they put in their defenses externally in the social order and the hierarchy with their little reporters and informers, which is another thing, the beehive or hive mind shit. That is people who have just informing and reporting programming. They're just watching certain people and they're reporting, and that's how they know what's going on inside hospitals, what's going on inside police offices and stuff like that. And so people don't even realize that they're acting like little Instagrams or email messengers for these jerks, and you're just all your life you don't remember it. I mean, you can put the pieces together maybe sometimes eventually, but it's rare because of the method of the programming techniques. But some of the other jobs for the kids when you're little were like the helpers that set up the ritual items and everything. They had you help. I think they must have been giving us hallucinogenics because everyone just messed up, like beyond hallucinogenics that I ever tried in college, or high school. This was, you know what I mean? This was nuts. I don't know what they give us, but it's really messed up. It's very, very psychedelic and very intoxicating, and you don't have no control. And so they have cutters. Cutters are very emotionless, and they the sacrifice at the sacrificial rituals, and they do have sacrificial rituals, and they do have this in the bloodlines. They have this going on.
Have you heard that coming up recently here in the next few weeks is going to be some of the biggest solar eclipses and stuff in the last, I don't know, maybe 100 years or something? So that's kind of a red flag right there that maybe some of these activities may be coming up very soon.